Hi everyone, my name is Taylor. I work here in marketing at Random House, and I recommend books on my own Instagram channel, Books with Taylor. Today I'm going to be joined by a very special guest, Judd Apatow. We will get him up here in just a second, but I'm going to quickly pin a comment first. In the meantime, go ahead and introduce yourself and start asking questions. I'm sure that there's a lot that we'll get through today. Let's see if he's joined us yet. Hi,
There it is.
we have you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's such an honor to talk with you today. I'm so excited.
I'm glad I was even able to figure out how to get in. I was terrified.
The technology is a little confusing, I know. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself and about your amazing books?
About my amusing books. Well, I have a couple of books. I have that book,
Sick
Sick
in
in the
the Head.
Head, which is a collection of interviews with comedians, some of which I did when I was 15 and 16 years old. When I was in high school, I interviewed people like Howard Stern and Jerry Seinfeld because I was just a comedy nerd obsessed with meeting people. This is in the mid 80s, early 80s even. And then I did more interviews with people like David Sedaris and Maria Bamford and David Milch and Eddie Vedder. And so they're all in that book. And it's about creativity and life and comedy. And people seem to like that book. And then I made another book for you guys this year, which is it's Gary Shandling's book. And when I made this documentary for HBO about Gary Shandling, I found so much interesting stuff, photos and scripts, but also his journals. I decided to do a scrapbook slash oral history of Gary Shandling. And that is something that I always wanted to exist because I hated finding all this stuff and not having a way for people to be able to see it. You know, I'm a hoarder, so the idea that this would just go into some closet or storage space to never be seen was more than I could handle.
Well, we're so glad that you collected that into a book for us. And speaking of Gary, are there any words of wisdom, not only about comedy, but also about Buddhist meditation that have really stuck with you that you want to share today?
Well, there's a quote in there, I'll try not to screw up, that I think a lot about is just on some page in a journal. It said, maybe your comedy is a gift to be given to other people to help them through this impossible life with no thought of getting anything in return.
Mm.
And I think that's, a beautiful idea to be creative, to take your life, to take all the pain in your life and try to make it into art and comedy and storytelling that makes other people happy. But there's a lot of Buddhist writing in there because Gary kept journals, and a lot of his journals were messages to himself. So he was
Mm.
trying to, implant these ideas about being a more loving person and a kinder person and getting rid of his ego and trying to just be present. And it's almost like his journals was his higher voice trying to talk him off the ledge. And so when you reread it, it seems very smart and powerful and thoughtful. But I think in his mind, he was having like all sorts of terrible thoughts. And the journal would be the response, like, calm
Right.
down, it'll be okay, let go, you're fine, stuff like that.
Really comforting sentiments I think we all need today more than ever,
Yes,
for sure.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, as a comic, you've interviewed so many icons and newcomers, and I'm wondering if there are any stories from Sick in the Head that you want to talk about that you're still kind of thinking about and reflecting on these days.
Well, when it comes to writing and work and creativity, the one thing that I always think about is I think that when you're young, you're somewhat delusional in a good way. In
Mm-hmm.
order to succeed in whatever you want to do, you have to really believe you can make it. And I think about myself as a 15, 16-year-old kid hunting down Sandra Bernhard or, Willie Tyler and Lester, just whoever I was trying to interview. And I wanted to be in comedy, mainly as a stand-up comedian back then.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no thought in my head that I couldn't do it. And I think that's just genetically encoded in our minds, our young brain is tricked into believing anything is possible. And I think you have to take advantage of that. And even when you get older, remind yourself of that feeling so that you will take risks and you will try to do things. Because I was just an animal hunting people down, wanting to ask them, how do you do it? How do you write? How do you get on stage? How do you make movies? And that's what I think people respond to in the book. There's almost an insanity in my obsession and learning about comedy. But I remember being in college thinking, I think I learned more doing these interviews when I was 15 and 16 than I'm learning at college. Because I would sit with Jerry Seinfeld, who was a young comedian then, and just say, how do you write a joke? Literally, how do you write a joke? And I remember his response was, he goes, well, I'm working on a bit now about a guy I saw on TV who would catch a bullet between his teeth. They would shoot a bullet at him and he would catch it between his teeth. And I thought to myself, I don't remember his name. And I'm sure he's thinking, what do I have to do to get you to remember my name? And he said, and I come at it from different angles, well, how do you practice? Do you start with a raisin? And he just talked me through how he was thinking about this silly idea. And that's, how I learned about writing and comedy. Now I look back and go, well, I think the catching the bullet thing is a magic trick. I don't think he really caught the bullet now that I think about it.
Well, and I love that you did all of those interviews at 15 under the guise of working for the local radio station and didn't even air most of them, right?
Well, yeah, we had a high school radio station in Syosset on Long Island, WKWZ Radio. And I started this show called Club Comedy where I interviewed comedians. And I can't say I aired many of them. I really didn't. I just was more interested in doing them than airing them. And my voice is so high and I have such a Long Island accent. I'm like, so how do you get on stage? Do you sign up on a list? It's hard for me to listen to now. A lot of people are like, can you put out the tapes? I'm like, no, I don't want to put out the tapes.
Amazing. Well, so then what tips do you have now for aspiring comics and writers?
Well, I just did a master class for that thing, master class. And I was oddly lucid for a few days when we shot it. I tried to really give all the advice that I could think of. But a lot of the advice I generally give is that, a lot of it is just, hard work. It's just, you have to really, to be a writer, you got to sit in that chair every day. And if you can't do that, you're in trouble. You have to really get up every day and sit in that chair and stare at a blank piece of paper or your computer. And you have to be voracious about learning, and you have to be able to shut your critic off so that you can write. You have to just give yourself the ability to be bad for a while and get it out and slowly learn. A lot of people give up quick because it takes a while. And I think a lot of young people these days think that you can be good at things quickly. I was talking to someone about this the other day. When I started as a comedian, everyone said to me, it takes 7 years to learn how to do this, to find yourself. And that made me feel good as a kid. I'm like, oh, so if I start at 17, when I'm 24, I'll be great. And that felt like, all right, I'll give you 7 years to do this. But I think because you could just put yourself on TikTok or YouTube instantly now, that I think some young people think, I can do it today. Why can't I just make it all happen right this second? And I do think it takes some patience to learn how to do these things.
Well, it's definitely a craft that you have to master, for sure.
Yeah, I had a friend who said that he sold his 10th screenplay. So in my head, I was like, oh, okay, so I'll write 10 of these and maybe the 10th one will sell. And it made me less stressed. I understood that there was a learning process to this. And I think, a lot of people think, oh, I'll sell the first one. That happens, but your 10th one is usually better.
Definitely. I have another question for you, but I'm going to quickly remind people that this is Random House live with Judd Apatow. And you can ask questions using the little question feature at the bottom, and we'll try to get to some of your audience questions in just a few minutes here. But Judd, I'd love to know, how are you finding inspiration for humor right now when perhaps the outside world isn't terribly funny?
Well, I think it's, it's tricky. What I've been trying to do is to not watch the news till late afternoon. So if I wake up and I exercise and I meditate, I could trick myself into thinking nothing's happening and try to disappear into an imaginative space, go have lunch, maybe try to do some calls or get some other work done. And then maybe late afternoon, I dip into the news, try not to go too deep, and then, have dinner with my family, and then watch the Michael Jordan 30 for 30,
There you
or
go.
whatever we're watching, My Brilliant Friend or something. But I do think it is about how you start your day, just so you could get your head clear. And, we developed some screenplays with other writers. I spent a lot of time on the phone talking to people about their stories. I can't say I've been hilarious or I've figured out, anything at this time. It's very difficult. I've been having, some success in helping people with their ideas and pretending none of this is happening just for a few hours a day. And maybe something will occur to me that is inspired, but it hasn't happened yet. But I'm trying not to also put any pressure on myself.
Sure.
I'm just trying to take care of my family and keep my sanity and be there for other people as much as I can.
Yeah. Well, so we have some great audience questions here. Let's find a good one. Here we go. Do you miss doing stand-up right now?
I was very deep in directing the Pete Davidson film I made this summer called The King of Staten Island. So I hadn't been doing a ton of stand-up. I always miss it. I try to do a show at Largo in Los Angeles once a month. We do a benefit once a month, and it's usually like comedians and a musical artist. So we'll have, Bo Burnham and Beck. And we do it once a month for different charities, and I miss those nights the most, and performing at the Comedy Store and the Improv and places like that. But I made a movie with Pete Davidson that is a comedy drama called The King of Staten Island, which hopefully will reach you soon in some form, and I'm really proud of it. It's a very personal movie that I wrote with Pete and Dave Cyrus. And hopefully the trailer will come out pretty soon, maybe in the next couple of weeks.
Are there any other projects that you're working on right now that you can share with us?
I'm trying to think what else. We were about to start shooting a movie with Billy Eichner when all this occurred. So hopefully, we'll get to start that up again. But Billy Eichner and Nick Stoller, who wrote and directed Get Him to the Greek and directed Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Neighbors. They were right about to start shooting a movie, so that was a project that we were very excited about, and hopefully we'll get going again.
Amazing. We have another great fan question here. What is the favorite movie that you've made so far?
That's a good question. I don't know if there is like a favorite movie. I was a producer on the movie Step Brothers, and I feel like that's the movie that people like the best. And that was written by Adam McKay and Will Ferrell, and stars Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. I think we always need a lot of Step Brothers. I think Step Brothers makes us happy, and that's one that I go to a lot.
That's a really funny one. I really enjoy that one. We have another great fan question. Are you still able to enjoy comedy movies, or do you find yourself critiquing them?
I don't know. I don't like go to comedy an enormous amount. I tend to like documentaries a lot. I love a great comedy, but I don't obsessively hunt them down. I'm really, I just finished Ozark season 3, and I enjoyed How to Fix a Drug War on HBO was a great documentary. I don't find myself critiquing them, but when it's somebody who's amazing, like Bill Hader's show Barry or Uncut Gems, I get very excited when somebody really pulls it off.
Great. Also, as a quick reminder for our live viewers, if the comments are bothering you on the left side, you can just swipe them down and they should condense a bit.
I didn't even know that was possible. I just learned that.
A little fun tip for you guys. Let's see what other great questions we have. Lots of favorites. I hope that these questions are okay
Mhm.
with you. Do you have a favorite autobiography?
Oh, that's a very good question. Well, I love the autobiography of Don Felder from the Eagles. That's a really
Amazing.
good book. I love rock biographies and
Mhm.
autobiographies. There's a great new one about Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young that I'm enjoying. What else? Autobiographies. I've got uh, um, the new Demi Moore. We always get that wrong. That's a great one. I want to read the Kathy Valentine book about her time in the Go-Go's. There's so many. Yeah, autobiographies are the best, especially rock and roll ones are fun. I read the one that Roger Daltrey wrote, which is very good. If you're looking for a great one, that's a really good one.
These are amazing recommendations. Another
I'm a
question
book
here for you.
hoarder. I can't stop buying books. I read
We
four
have the same
percent of
problem.
them. I buy them all though, but I read 4% of them.
Amazing. So, do you find it challenging to work with your spouse? I guess, especially now that I'm
Mhm.
assuming everyone's at home.
Working together, we always have fun working together. It's very collaborative, and I like working with my daughters, Maud and Iris. I worked with Iris on the TV show Love, which is on Netflix, and she's hilarious. And then Maud is on that television show Euphoria on HBO, which is worth checking out. And she also, Maud is on a new show on Netflix um, called Hollywood that Ryan Murphy produced. That's going to be on first week of May, I think. So I love working with them probably more than they love working with me. I'm always like trying to pull them into things.
Amazing. Okay, we're gonna do two more audience questions, and
Okay.
then we'll do a little last call here. Do you have any advice for writing a 5-minute short film?
Well, the thing I always say is that your phone is just like the best thing in the world to make a film. So you shouldn't just write it; you should make it. I was just using the Splice app. We spent an entire day making a cat video in my house, and we really we scripted it. And then I asked my family who's going to edit it, and everyone refused. So now I'm like on this Splice app editing this cat video. We have not unleashed it on the world yet. It's a lot of pressure. My wife keeps saying, "Can you just send it to someone who knows how to edit?" I'm like, "No, I'm editing it." Uh,
Oh, love.
so I think basically you should just do it. Like you could do it. Like when I was young, you'd have to buy Super 8 film and get it developed, and there was no way to show anybody. All of the technology makes it possible to just shoot something right now. You could shoot a short film where you are in this very moment. So I was just saying, just do it. Don't talk about it. Just go make something.
Yeah, that's really wonderful advice. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before I cut us off with our time restraint here?
Um, well, I that's the largest anything type of question for of all time. I hope everybody is well and safe and uh, and taking care of yourself and your families. And you know, don't forget to laugh here and there. It helps. I've been exercising more than I should have. I've lost 7 pounds already because I decided I
Wow.
was either going to get fat or skinnier, and I made the choice skinnier. So just take good care of yourselves and be well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was such a treat for all of us.
Of
We really
course.
did.
My pleasure.
All right, everyone, have a good day.
All right, you too. Bye bye.